Planning an event and wondering how you can give your attendees the best experience possible? Take advantage of customized meetings with Hilton that make it easier than ever to incorporate health, wellness, entertainment, and waste reduction. From yoga and yogurt morning starts to puppies and ice cream afternoon breaks, Hilton will help you build an extraordinary meeting that attendees will remember. To book your next meeting or event, go to meetings.hilton.com. That's meetings.hilton.com.
Are you a follower? Okay, so we're gonna probably add.
Welcome to GatherGeeks, a podcast by BizBash, the place where people passionate about meetings and events come together. Here are your hosts, BizBash CEO David Adler and Editor-in-Chief Beth Kormanik.
Hi, David.
Hey, Beth. Here we are, another GatherGeeks.
And we have a treat for this episode after our 4th of July break. So welcome back to everyone and hope you had a nice 4th. So today, our guest is Rachel Gross, a Senior Vice President of Event Marketing at Univision. Before that, she was Vice President of Corporate Events and Community Relations at AOL. And she's also worked in events at L'Oreal, Windstar Communications, and MCI. She's appeared in BizBash as an event innovator. She's spoken at BizBash Live, and we've covered many of her events over the years. And she recently joined us in our offices to share her insight and strategy on a number of topics.
She is probably one of the smartest people in our business. I learned so much when we talked to her. She is so, she has the ability to bring out the best in people. She's a great leader. I mean, I can't say much. I have a total crush on her from the event perspective.
Well, one of the things that I appreciate when talking with her is her ability to answer the question you're asking, but also give this 20,000-foot big picture answer that puts it all in context. So it's what I think will make this conversation valuable to other event planners who don't necessarily work in media like she does. So she's going to share her bedrock principles when planning events, how to think about events in this political climate, convincing your boss to try something new, and hiring and managing an events team. Let's take a listen. Rachel, welcome to GatherGeeks.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, we have so much that we would want to talk to you about today. And we'll start off with one of the meta concepts that we talk about at BizBash is the festivalization of events and how they have changed in that way. And you've really been at the forefront of that trend, breaking new ground. And I would love for you to talk about how you got into that mindset and then how it has changed through the years as you have refined it through events, especially like the Upfronts.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the question. We started doing the festivalization of events with the new fronts, and we wanted to do things that made people think differently about our brand there. And so that's really where we started thinking about the concept of experiences and a different way to interact and bring to life content. So when we created our department at Univision, which now is, 6.5 years ago. So, we also have made a journey of how we do events and the different ways in which our constituents, whether it be consumers or the advertising community, how they will interact with us and how Univision communications can be memorable. So in this year's Upfront in particular, in an industry where, we had done our Upfront the same way for 50 years, literally 5 decades, with a presentation, with a social event to follow, we took a look at doing it differently. And a lot of times in this business, we trust our gut, right? But I knew it was really important for me to go past that, right? My gut probably was the front door to it. But I knew in working with my senior leadership, I would need to have more than that. I would need to have data to back it up.
To get them to take a risk.
That's right, exactly, because this is business and this is dollars and cents. So we used an advertiser perception study for 300 advertisers that had gone to our Upfront and other Upfronts over the past 3 years to provide us with data. And it was very interesting what we learned. We learned that we were not memorable. We learned that big acts like Shakira closing your show was not something people associated with being even important to our company, our brand. We learned a series of things that made us say, oh, wow, because you think you're doing something correct, but if you can stop, actually do the homework, be ready to hear the tough news, because I was really proud of those upfronts. And it's not that I'm not proud of them as well. They had a perfect moment in time and place, but the world is changing.
So those insights are, they had to be shocking in some ways, right?
Absolutely.
And what's interesting is that you took them and instead of abandoning the upfront, which, frankly, many brands have done. Some have just said, we can't figure this out or it's not working. Instead, you doubled down and you expanded to 2 days, but you changed the format. So tell us what you did.
That's right. It's interesting because a lot of brands, you see them say it's a cost we don't need. And maybe that's an excuse to abandon it, right? Instead of thinking about it differently. Because an upfront really is a chance. It's an exchange of information to get an advertiser excited to do business with you. So if that's what's at the core of the upfront, you've got to go back to those principles. And that's what we did. So we put together a list of what are the things that we have to sell, to engage. What are those experiences that would make advertisers want to do business with us? And the list of the assets of content was 3 pages long. And financially, you couldn't do that. You couldn't create experiences around 100 different ideas. And you also wouldn't want to, because then you don't become memorable. And you don't give people a chance to digest what it is, what you're trying to say if you try to give them too much. So we took this concept and we were very inspired by the good work of Refinery, with Refinery 29 Rooms. I think that they have done for our industry something magnificent. And it is very inspiring work. So we started to research this experience, festivalization across a lot of different sectors.
Can I interrupt 1 second about when you say the word festivalization? What is the difference between a festivalization concept and the way you were doing it before? Is it a one-on-one relationship? Is it a one-to-many relationship? What is your definition of festivalization?
For me, it means someone getting involved and taking part. So instead of having, on the lyric stage in a past upfront where I would have one executive speaking at 1,800 people, now I have small groups of people interacting with us. So it shifts. The pyramid has now become inverted, right? Now you have all of your attendees and your audience sort of leading the conversation. That's very different in terms of having that communication method, which is, that one-to-many. Now it's more one-to-one, 20-to-1. Those types of interactions are priceless. When you can get somebody to stop, take a moment in this hectic world, digest, have a conversation, have a meaningful experience that they're actually leading, that is this festivalization, right? So one of the experiences that we created at our Upfront was around Sunday Night Fever. Sunday nights are traditional Hispanic America will gather in their homes around food, fellowship, being with each other, and entertainment plays a big role in that. So if on Sunday nights, our programming can really give people a chance to engage in conversation, make memorable exchanges, awesome. We know that we will be creating something important for those families and then in turn for advertisers to have meaningful exchanges. So at our Upfront this year, we brought to life Sunday Night Fever. We had a reality show that we brought to life. We had the dancers on the dance floor teaching dance lessons. So this is the shift, right? Instead of watching a 30-second sizzle video about that reality show, now all of a sudden I've got castmates there showing what they do. And if I'm someone that doesn't watch Spanish language media or interact with it, oh, wow, Univision just helped me understand why this matters, why this is special, and why millions of people tune in every Sunday night to Univision to feel different.
So I was there, and it worked.
Thanks for coming.
It was really, I felt like the whole Maya Angelou quote about it's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. And you did get that feeling in the way it was orchestrated. And it was a completely different approach. But at each one of those dioramas, or whatever you call them, the different acts, I guess you would call it, has to be really well carefully thought out.
That's right.
I mean, you felt like you were in the set of some of these shows, and
Great.
you felt like you were in the stadium. And it was the sensation of the audio and the video and the personal and the music and the food and everything else. And it is much harder to do than people think.
It really is, especially we were in Spring Studios, which is in a fantastic space, and you deal with things like noise bleeding. When you have an open space, it's a blessing and it's also a challenge. So, for instance, you're referring to our sports experience, which we did the home of soccer. And the minute you entered into this space, we had a temporary wall that we had built. And we partnered with the agency first, and they were amazing partners, really terrific, first-class organization. We wanted people to feel transformed. So we created things that were soundtracks, like the chants that the players hear in the tunnel before they go onto the pitch. We brought in grass smell because that was important. We wanted people to feel wind in their hair. So we had hidden wind machines in the rafters so that people felt transported of what it was like to go from the locker room experience down the tunnel for, inspiration, and then actually onto the field. Soccer is an amazing, amazing sport. It's the fastest growing sport in America. And the job for my team and myself was, how do we let advertisers and partners feel that magic and feel that excitement?
So those are the ideas that rose to the top. The soccer example is great, but if you want to take on another one, that's fine too. And I'm wondering, how did those brainstorm sessions work? I'm sure you left a lot of ideas on the floor. How did you do that?
That is a tough part because, the mother in me, I love all my children. I love all my brands. Univision UCI, Univision Communications Inc. is a portfolio company. So on one side of the spectrum, you have The Onion, which is tremendously popular, satirical news, important organization to get us to think differently. They have such an important role to play in society. And then on the opposite end of it, you have award-winning Jorge Ramos with our nightly news, which is built on integrity. And so the spectrum is very, very wide. So there were different ideas that came, between, both of those benchmarks that, not all of them made the cut. We also had to use budget as a guide. We had to use interaction. When you have 1,800 people trafficking through in waves, you have a logistics opportunity there. So how do you not only deal with the sound thing we just spoke about, but how do you also make sure that each of those brands are getting their moment in the sun in an impactful way? So for instance, on The Onion, we did a roving video photo booth. So it was an opportunity for people to put themselves into a news headline, which The Onion is so famous for, but in a roving way. And I think that's also important because in this structure, and I actually love that we added some roving moments, when the experiences are a destination, how are you making sure that people that maybe just want to hang at the bar for a few minutes and have a conversation are interacting at every possible moment. How do you make good use of walk-in, right? And how do you use every bit of your real estate and your agenda time to your advantage? So yes, some things made it, some things didn't make it. In our debrief, I think that's always such an important part of the event process, is to look at it and say, where did we nail it? And where is the opportunity to do a do-over? And I mean, this business is built on do-overs. That's the greatest thing about events, is if you don't like what you're working on, don't worry. It's going to be over pretty soon. Or if you love what you're working on and you have the ultimate chance to redo it and make it better, then that's wonderful. I would say probably surgeons, plastic surgeons don't get that opportunity.
That's not one you want to do a do-over with.
Exactly.
Or need to do a do-over.
So another thing that you had to consider was your audience's passion points. How did you think about that and then translate it into experiences at the event?
Absolutely. You have to be very finite and detailed about that. The more exact you are, the better those experiences will be. And we found that through the planning process, the more we could go back to that goal and objective, the better off we would be. And we know that's a principle, right, of event planning. That's event planning 101. And they'll say that goals and objectives go, well, it is true. And for us, it was going to be about news, sports, and entertainment. And if we could fit our experiences into those three portals, then we were going to be okay. And as the organization found that we were recreating our Upfront, a lot of people really sort of emerged to say, oh, I would love for you to talk about this. I would love for you to talk about that. And you almost have to be, you get a little bit of a gatekeeper of the brand. You don't want to dilute it. You want to hold true to your mission. You want to be open to last minute opportunities and be opportunistic if there's something that's lightning in a bottle and yes, we should add it and let's do it. But that is one of the things of an in-house corporate events team. You're part of the fabric there. You're part of the team, and you have to manage those expectations and that gatekeeping respectfully. So for us, we were on those three experiences, and that was our North Star, and that's what we built around. It was really difficult. It was difficult. Like soccer was easy, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you got to entertainment, which has, we are a massive portfolio with, on one end of the spectrum, you've got El Chapo, this notorious drug warlord in Mexico. And then you've got this really cute reality show, Pequeños Gigante, about kids becoming superstars. So where do you find that experience in that spectrum? And you have to pick and choose those moments and not try to boil the ocean.
So what did you choose?
We chose Pequeños Gigante. In that particular example, we felt that the metrics behind how it could drive advertiser expectations, that was a good bet for us. Now, we did bring dramas to life in other ways, things that were premiering, fresh content, and we were excited about that too. But yeah, difficult decisions, but in the long run, the right decisions.
So I was at the first one. Did you change it the second time you did it? Or did you just do the same run the show?
We did change our closing act. So
because he wasn't there? Or?
We wanted the variety.
Really? Okay.
We structured the program so that we would have different closing acts to give us a little bit more of a opportunity to be unexpected. I think that's one thing as planners, we plan, right? And we want everything to follow that production schedule. And when you can have moments of even surprising your own self and build that into your plan. Of course, you don't want something tragic to happen, but when you can ebb and flow, I think it creates a little bit more than buzz in your press around your event. So people could say, oh, I saw this performer. Oh, I saw that performer. Oh, what else was different? We also made changes around the food and beverage, depending on the day. So on Monday evening, had more of that cocktail sort of vibe to it. And then on Tuesday, we were able to have some fun with breakfast items, moving into lunch, and then of course moving into the end of the day. So we had a great partner with Creative Edge who went on that journey with us and made sure that our food and beverage also had its own personality and wasn't so staid and tried and, well, if you offered this on Monday, you have to offer the same thing to your other 3 waves on Tuesday. Because we did the approach of 4 waves to get 1,800 people through this experience.
And is that the wave concept? Is that something that is a Rachel idea or Rachel concept?
Honestly, it came out of the data, right? Having that, that relationship of, that one-to-many approach, now more of one-to-one, that wave concept just seemed natural. Now, that was something that was at the debate table big time. It was, should we do 2 waves? Then all of a sudden, you've sort of made that sacrifice. You're back to talking to 900 people at the same time. So that was a risk, right? And doing it 4 times, worrying, will your executives be okay? Will the experiences hold up to that type of traffic? That's where we went and researched Refinery 29 Rooms, and we saw how their traffic pattern happened over multiple days, weekends, and how could we learn from that?
So did the guests have specific times when they were supposed to be there, or did you leave it open for those waves to happen?
We put the event in their hands. They told us when they wanted to come. So on the invitation, we gave them the choice, which is also a new concept in upfronting, right? Because people are told, we've been at Tuesday at 11 o'clock for 4 decades. So now, all of a sudden, for our partners who we care so much about, and there are 46 different upfronts that take place in the Newfront Upfront schedule. The week of the 14th, there were 17 alone. So as the user, right, as the person that's going to these upfronts, my goodness, what they go through and how exhausting. And you were at most of them, Beth, so, and you too, David, how exhausting that can be. So, giving people choice is also a different way to think about events moving forward too. Mm-hmm. People want choice. They want to customize. They want to be able to do things on their schedule.
So do you have a sense of how long on average people stayed?
We do have a sense of it. We think and we believe, based on some research and polling and tracking that we did at the event, an hour and a half was how much time people were interacting with us. And some longer because the space had a rooftop and we got a beautiful day. And that's just the magic hour when people then choose to do the experiences and then say, I'm going to go to the roof and hang out and have a drink and interact. And that for us was just, an added bonus in the venue selection. When your venue can work that extra mile for you, then that's terrific.
When's the big event? Hilton is here for planners with their exclusive customized meetings. Become a wow maker and save time by letting Hilton help you present an extraordinary event, one that leads to memorable and meaningful connections. Visit meetings.hilton.com and let Hilton help you.
So are you seeing, as Rachel's rules, a trend here for personalizing timeframes? I mean, that's kind of new, right? And what is the impact on the budget for that? Because everybody would think, oh my God, if I did it once, it's going to be much cheaper. But is it a user experience trumping budget?
I think you can have both.
Okay.
So in this scenario, you can have controls on when a particular session would be sold out. And I also feel like that drives scarcity, drives interest. So when someone sees 6 p.m. sold out, they jump quickly to say, I want to register now and get my place for what remains on Tuesday. So we found that was a plus in this particular model, that when you put the controls, We use Splash that for registration system, which is great. And they allow you to put the different, set the margins of your attendee parameters. When you hit that, 600 or 300 or 200, whatever that level was set for that particular audience segment, then on to the next. So you can control your budget that way. I actually think more, maybe even more, because you can back into a number and register a little bit over for slippage. We did not see that as a budget impact at all.
Wow.
We saw it as a plus for people to just think differently and see our brand differently. We hope that the event represented how easy it is to do business with Univision. And that's so cool when your event goals can cross over to your DNA as a brand and a company. That is living your values.
Are you thinking of that use case in other ways?
Absolutely.
And how else would you use that sort of like multiple events for one event?
We do a thought leadership conference called Leading the Change. This would be our sort of TED conference for our users. And we are in the process right now of looking at the data, the survey results, the interactions from our Upfront, and programming this fourth quarter conference in ways that were best learnings from how we interacted with audience for this thought leadership. So you'll have to have me back so I can tell you how our agenda changed for this. But it's one of those things, and our CEO said to me after the Upfront, you can never go back. This was so well received, you can never go back. And that to me was, you value a CEO's opinion because they've been through so many upfronts and events of different size and shape. And when they say something like that to you, sure, there's things that we're going to improve, but on a concept, you can't turn your back on it.
So you went from your gut to the research to back it up to executing to getting that kind of feedback. So that's a pretty positive trajectory.
I think that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Moving on from the Upfront, I really wanted to bring up how you as a company and as an events department are changing or adapting or handling or reacting to the political environment, because we are seeing so much happening on the southern border, and you're a news organization as well as entertainment and sports, et cetera. And has the politics affected how you think as an events department?
I would be naive to say no, because we are the brand ambassadors for UCI. So our goal and our mission as a company, we are fearlessly representing Hispanic America. And we are the leading company doing that. And it would be remiss, irresponsible of us as a team to not have that value, that in our mind, everything that we structure and build. So I'm proud of the team because they always think about our values and who we are as a company, whether we're building, something that is an off-the-wall consumer activation. We always think about how we're representing and supporting Hispanic America. We have a world-class news organization, and that's church and state, from a company. They are incredible, and it is so makes me so proud to watch their coverage and how they represent our community. I love being part of this brand. I love being part of this company because a lot of times when you see brands abandoning their mission sort of for the flavor of the month or what's the shiny object out there, UCI does not do that. And for 60 years, we have fearlessly represented Hispanic America, and our events program is absolutely aligned with that goal. That's our goal.
Can you also talk about the alignment of the goal for the Hispanic American world? But you also have different attributes that you've talked about in the past and what makes that world different than other experiences that you've had. And it's changed how you do your lens of event organizing. What are some of the attributes of that world that are so different?
Latin culture is the most vibrant, passionate culture I've ever been associated with. And I knew immediately when I joined the organization and I went to a tentpole music event, and it was unbelievable. Music, food, this vibrancy around a culture that did not say, I'm not Hispanic, so I had that fear of would I fit in, would I be accepted? It is the most inclusive culture that I've ever been a part of. I actually feel like an honorary Hispanic. They call me Rockalita, which means Little Rachel, which is better than Big Rachel, right? So I feel like that's one of the things that we have permission to do, is to capture that special sauce and bring that to life in events.
What is that formula that you use then now? Like, there's certain things that are part of any event that you do for
music.
Univision.
That
has to have it.
Have to have it. Of course, if it's all relevant, right? You want to be mindful of that. If we're in a thought leadership conference that we're building, we might go to the business side of music and have Jay Balvin talk to us about how he has, built his business on the back of social media. We might look at it more on the business side, but music is a gotta have. Food is a gotta have. We think a lot about menu planning. We think about working with chefs and actually learning from them along the way. Authenticity is so important, and people can sniff that out. When any of those passion points start to feel trite or dialed in or fake, it doesn't work. But if you can be authentic in those different executions, it's a winning combination.
Are you using the same type of research for your consumer events that you do for the upfronts?
We use a different type of research. We use focus groups. So we work with our chief marketing officer, who is amazing, Jessica Rodriguez, who helps guide us through focus groups on how our audience likes to be interacted with. And that has been a real advantage for us. We had some great success with that, and we don't want to have blind spots, right? The whole reason to do events, right, is to move forward. Whether you're moving a movement, whether you're moving a business, whether you're moving a culture or rating engagement, it's about moving forward. So you want to take all of that, every piece of research, insight, advice. You may not take it all, but you got to take it in and say, okay, what can I use on this event? How can it help shape and grow what we're doing?
And so what's an insight that you learned and then applied to a consumer event?
For us, it was about entrepreneurism. And we are part of an event that's this weekend called Posible LA. And this is an event that is based in LA. It is for entrepreneurs in every different segment, whether it be the auto industry and owning various auto businesses, whether it be supermarkets, dry cleaners. It's that local level entrepreneurism. And that is something that Hispanics over-index on. Hispanic America embraces Main Street. And we are at the forefront of this event that's happening in LA. And that was an insight for us that, maybe it started as a gut, but it was proven for us through focus groups, through research, data, insights, and we're leveraging that. And it's a great tool for us for building business, but more importantly, it's a better tool because you're really meeting the needs of your consumers and your audience. And that's what you want to do. You want to be relevant, or you wake up and find yourself not having an audience. So that's important to us.
I was listening today to a podcast with Tom Peters, and he was talking about how we got to watch out for AI and all of the dehumanization of data and information. And he talked about how it's really going to be sort of things like events and customer service and touch points that are going to be more important than the future. So the question I have would be, does your organization believe that events are critical to the brand?
Absolutely.
And why? And what are they? What is that when you're not in the boardroom? They're not fighting you anymore in these brands.
No.
They love
now,
it.
is there an efficiency? Right? Is there an efficiency with robotics or AI? Is there an opportunity there to take an experience to the next level through VR? Yes. And so how do you take technology and help it be a tool to make something better, a better way to communicate, a better way to get your message across? We're not threatened by that at all.
But the idea that events are part of the strategy, I mean, that this no longer, I always used to say that in the event department, we used to sit at the children's table for Thanksgiving.
Not
and
anymore.
That is not the case anymore.
Not anymore. I mean, I think that it is, well, first of all, thanks to BizBash and yourselves for all of the work you do to help us as professionals really treat this as a profession and provide us with the tools to go into that boardroom conversation. That's right. We are not at the kids' table anymore. We are surpassing what is being spent on outdoor advertising, what's been spent on national campaigns. Like, it is exciting to see, as someone that's been in this space for 20 plus years, I'm dating myself. It is so cool to see this.
Well, let's share a little bit of your background now, since you brought that up, and tell us how you got into this business and what your journey has been.
Thanks for the question. I came from the ultimate entrepreneurial family. My mother is a wedding planner. And so while I'll probably never hold a candle to Magnolia and everything that she's accomplished, I'm probably no secret I have a Southern accent.
Yes, this is a podcast. Our listeners are focused on your voice, so they probably guessed that.
And I hope you don't have to do like subtitles or something. So forgive me. Hopefully, being understood. Okay. But growing up in Alabama, where it's so true because so many of the principles we've talked about with Univision and family being at the forefront, that's also a very Southern trait too. Family is at the forefront, and experiences, right? We didn't call it that then, but a wedding is the ultimate experience. So, where people were on a Saturday morning watching Scooby-Doo, I was helping my family decorate a church or helping put the forks out for a beautiful meal. And all of that attention to detail I learned from my mom. And it's so, I don't know if you feel this way, but one day you wake up and you realize, oh my God, I've become my mom. And there's something so awesome about it. And so I'm really, really lucky. I had an amazing family. They inspired me at an early age. I did not go to college to do this, but it certainly ended up, for the right career for me. New York City was also a big influence. To be able to come to New York, which is the hub of the event business, 2 decades ago was a blessing. And I quickly fell into the right mentors, the right job, the puzzle. When I look back at my career, wow, how lucky I've been. And all the puzzle pieces have just fit together in a way that was unimaginable. And I would say that to people that are starting their career, take a breath. It will work out. These puzzle pieces are coming together in a way that you will not even be able to imagine how magnificent it can be. I had a great mentor out of the gate. Pam Miller, who I worked with, my first job was at the British Chamber of Commerce, and then I went on to work at some amazing brands: L'Oreal, AOL, Univision. So I've been really, really fortunate that my path has led me along the way to great leaders, great bosses, great mentors, great events, right? Mm-hmm. That's also like something that's really important. Are you working on things that get you excited to get out of bed in the morning? And I have been so blessed in that way.
Tell us about your team at Univision. What does it look like? How many people are there that make this magic happen?
Thank you for that. The team is so important. I always look at hiring like I'm putting together a baseball team. You do not want to just have all, great pitchers. You don't want to have all great outfield. You have to have people with different expertise and not try to make everybody so cookie cutter. That is one thing that I have learned as being a manager. I guess I started managing people 18 years ago. It's, that is what you're hiring for, is diversity. And when you can have diversity of thought, people that are brave enough to raise their hand and say, I disagree, or I've got a great idea, or yes, and that's a dream team. And that's what I hire for, is diversity. When the team starts to look the same, then you don't really have anybody that's maybe brave enough. You're drinking too much of your own Kool-Aid to say, hey, this is not great, or let's think about it differently. Let's be more innovative. So diversity yields innovation for me, and I have an awesome team. I'm really lucky. I think, one of the most important things to hire for is intuition, and it's not something that you can teach. And I've learned that probably has been such a big thing for me, is intuition. And will a person have that internal compass while they're working on a project to say, this doesn't feel right, or I would like to go this direction. Can I have a dialogue with you about it? That's that special sauce of intuition, and it is magical. If people that are interviewing or looking for their next career path, if they can think about what are examples where I have used intuition, and whether it's been a good or bad decision, that doesn't matter. That means you are a risk taker. You are listening to your gut. You are listening to your influences of, colleagues, reading, writing, experiences. That's how you develop your intuition.
So as an interviewer, what are the tricks of your questioning to pull that out so that you can make a judgment whether someone has intuition?
I will use scenario interview questions all the time. And I also will ask people to present a project during the interview process, and which I think is the best thing to do, right? So I kind of run my own apprentice style interview. And when people present their project and you're dialoguing with them and say, oh, the fire alarm just went off, what would you do? Okay, so that's sort of contingency planning. But if you can look at it and say, what would you do if the show must go on? How would you use intuition to make sure that you're still reaching your goals and objectives and treating your audience with respect, dignity for their time? Those are the best ways to get at the center of it. And you can sense someone when they are not being completely transparent, or you feel like they can't really think on their feet. You can do that through those types of interview, but only if someone is willing to go out of the box when they present their project, which is also step one. Are they presenting something that's interesting and different? And
are these projects they've already worked on, or are these scenarios that you've come up with or asked them to develop?
The latter. So
Okay.
It's scenarios that pertain to my business, but they have never done before. And then there's a short time frame to get it back to us.
So do they have time not in the interview. This is an advance.
Yep, they have prep time.
You have prep time in the same when they apply or when they come for a meeting and you give them
It's like
time to go
second
back?
round interview.
Second round interview.
Second
Okay.
round interview. So if that goes well, then it's project time. And when they come in to talk about their project and pitch it to us, and we also do we do team interviews. So it's not just Rachel interviewing somebody. Everybody on the team will have a vote when we bring a new player on board. And I think that's important because someone that's hired knows, wow, everybody on this team wanted me here. So that's a cool
Does
way
it
to
have
start
to
a
be
job.
unanimous?
I would say in my years of doing this, it has always been unanimous.
Really? Okay. You just know it if you know it. And then,
Yeah, we have to keep interviewing till we find the right candidate.
I mean, you have great teams. I mean, the people
Thank
that have been
you.
working for you, we've worked with, they're
Thank
all
you.
pros.
I'm so fortunate, and it's so cool to see when teammates go on to their next chapter outside of our corporate event team, and they pursue other fields. I think about a teammate of mine, Jenny Stahl, who now is leading sponsorships at Visa, and she's at the World Cup executing that. And I'm just so proud of her. And hopefully, I had one little small inch in helping form her and help mentor her and guide her. So that to me is like just the ultimate,
So is there a skill set that, other than the intuition, that you find lacking in the next generation? What's your advice for the next, for the people coming up in this business?
I think probably the one ingredient that I'm seeing some opportunity in is in patience. Patience.
What do you mean by that?
God, I mean so much by that. When I talk about patience, it's you may not get an answer from an internal or external client in 5 minutes. You may have to use your skills of persuasion. You may have to think about how you pitch. You may have to think about how you sell a concept in a different way. And all of those stages require patience, perseverance, patience, smarts, inclusivity to get good thought of ideas. But at its core, it's patience. And that's probably one of the things that I think about even my day before I came here, having a conversation with a brilliant planner on my team. And it was several examples of let's have patience. I think the other thing that's an important factor is being well read and always being a learner. I think, there's so much of a rush to do my event, get my event done, make sure it's great, have good ROI, and along the way, maybe not enjoying the journey and using your outside resources to affect the journey. That when I see a planner doing that, it gets me so excited because they're in the moment. And so those are things that I think are important, that intuition, patience, planning in the moment, having a network, using it to your advantage. Those are all things that you probably wouldn't see on a job description. But when you peel back the layers, right, people have to have certain credentials to get an interview. And once you go through that first pass, awesome. But then what are those things that are going to make you different and stand out and become a really valuable teammate? I mean, that's the other thing too. Like, you've got to be a killer teammate. And what does that mean? That means that you may have to stay late. That means that you may have to put something you're working on that you're passionate about, that has timeline and deliverables, on a moment hold to help somebody else. Teamwork is important. And that is something that I'm just not willing to concede on. It's important.
This is great. This is great advice for people that are coming up. It's great advice for people that are in the business that need to recapture their curiosity. How do you do that? How do you, the people that have been in there for a long time, how do they get reinvigorated?
I think one of the best ways to be reinvigorated is by the new youth and energy coming onto teams. That to me is one awesome way to think differently about how you're approaching. When I see someone that is marketing their event that they're doing on Snapchat in a way that maybe I just wasn't knowledgeable about, let me stop, let me learn. I think interns and apprentices are very, very important to event teams. I think they really do help guide and influence. And the other thing I think is, another way to invigorate your curiosity is this whole notion of events being this sort of like consolidation. Well, maybe if you flip that on its ear and think of events as more of like this sort of main streetification, right? Where you are on the hunt for the most innovative guitar player or the most innovative artist. If you can bring yourself, because we get so busy as leaders of teams where you don't take a moment to research and reconnect with why you love this industry. That I think has been something that I'm noticing myself wanting to do more. And we do this thing in our Thursday production meetings as a team, idea of the week. And I know you do it here at BizBash too. And that actually is a great way. It's a simple concept, but what is that idea that you're seeing out in the marketplace that is maybe something that we'll never use, or maybe a piece of what we could, but that is a great way to reinvigorate yourself and to be topical and editorial and to be mindful. Those are all really, really important things, and no level is too senior to do that. And when you can see someone come into that production meeting and they're like, I have 10 ideas of the week, it's awesome. It's just awesome.
So one last question for me, and it builds on that. For you personally, is there something that you've said to yourself, I really want to try, or I want to explore X for an upcoming event?
For me, it is partnerships. And I am inspired when I see things in the marketplace with, for instance, SoulCycle and the partnerships they have, or WeWork and the partnerships they have. And so when I see this around us, I then take from that playbook and say, look at the partners that Univision has: Pop Sugar, NFL, the Players Tribune, Ted Espanol. So how can those partnerships now become a way in which our events can evolve, meet the needs of our audiences differently? I'm excited and energized by that. And you can bet by the end of the year, I'll have one I want to talk to you about.
Great.
We'll look forward to that. So Rachel, tell our listeners how they can reach you.
Perfect. I love Instagram, so I hope you'll follow me at Rachel J. Gross. I'm also on LinkedIn for Rachel Gross. And anyone that reaches out, whether they want to network, whether you want advice, whether you want to disagree with something I've said, all comments are welcome. This is a community we're building, and it's an honor to be part of it. So get in touch. I love that stuff.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks,
it's
y'all.
a pleasure to have you here.
All right, David, we're back in our studio, and so much to unpack from that conversation. What jumps out to me is that Rachel is one of the people who is thinking differently from a brand perspective about how to use events smartly and strategically.
Absolutely. I mean, and she's willing to take the risk. I mean, that's was so interesting about this upfront discussion that we had. That, I mean, as she said, it was a big risk to pace these different events, to have more than one event at a time with the same purpose, which is very interesting.
Right, and the process that she went through to pull it off, in terms of starting from the concept, having a feeling that something needed to change, doing the research, coming up with new concepts, and getting the buy-in from the top down. All of those were essential components.
And I love the fact that they were scared to death to do it, and they did it. And I thought that really moved the ball forward.
Yeah, in our conversation, she was also so gracious in naming her vendor partners. I heard a production agency, a caterer, and others. And part of that, I think, is being in the business for so long. You develop these relationships and they truly become partners in the process.
Right. And they help you. I mean, it seems, yes, we're saying how gracious she is, but these partners are really part of the teams. That's what's so great about it. So, Beth, what is going on at BizBash?
Well, it's now officially July, and so I have to remind everybody about BizBash Live Los Angeles. It is Wednesday, July 18th. We have been working so hard to program a day full of inspiring speakers, a bustling exhibit hall, and more. And I'll also note that this event is not just limited to event professionals on the West Coast. Certainly we'll have lots of Angelinos, but we will have attendees that come from all across North America and beyond to join us. I've seen the list of people who have registered so far, and they are from all over. So join us. You can find out more at bizbash.com/events.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Beth. And also, before we end, I want to thank our producer, Dave Nelson, Claire Hoffman from our editorial team that helps pull this content together, and Rebecca Pappas that gets it to you. So thank you. And what do we say now, Beth?
Gather on.
Gather on.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. We can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Player FM, Google Play, and Pocket Cast. Be sure to leave us a rating and review. It helps others discover the GatherGeeks podcast. We'd also love to hear from you. You can leave feedback on Twitter at GatherGeeks or leave us an email, gathergeeks@bizbash.com. We hope you'll join us again for the next episode of GatherGeeks. Until then, gather on. Don't forget to register for BizBash Live Los Angeles on July 18th at the California Market Center. Join nearly 1,500 fellow event pros at the must-attend event of the year. Secure your spot today at bizbash.com/ExpoLA with code GATHER for special rates.